Oh, yeah! We're back with another episode, Statistically Speaking. We're back again, and look, Jack, we've finally been joined by James the Brain, who first show he decided he was going to run off and storm off and strut like a baby. Second show he didn't come back because he had his tail between his legs. But he's back for the third show, so he's got a lot of making up to do, hasn't he, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, he's 10 minutes late as well, so...
It's disgraceful. It's just like, can you see what I'm putting up with here, people?
I know.
The logistical nightmare of trying to father these children that I'm working with, it is impossible. But James the Brain, I don't know why I've just said I'm fathering you both. Like, that's a bit weird. It feels a bit creepy. James the Brain, it's so good to have you back. How are you feeling? Your mic, James. You can't. You're useless. Do you know that? Do you actually know? Do you know what? I think I prefer it with your mic muted. I think that's a better look. Unmute and tell us how you're feeling.
Yeah, I'm all good. Slowly recovering from second round of COVID, but you know, it is what it is.
Oh, I'm poorly.
You asked me how I was.
I asked you how you were feeling today. I didn't need your life story. I didn't need it backdated to 2 weeks when you had an ingrowing toenail. I don't care, James. I care about how you are today. No, I do care. Hope you're well. It's great to have you back, joining myself and Jack, who we killed it last week, by the way. You probably watched the show. You probably didn't because you knew it was going to be so good and you was gutted. But that show last week was unbelievable, wasn't it, Jack? Really good not having James there for once.
I mean, no, that's mean on James.
It was a good show.
No, it was a good show. It was a good show.
It was a great show. But today's show is a new show. We come with something new every single week, and today's show is all about the big man, Virgil van Dijk. Who's going to partner him next season? That's what we want to know. Who is going to partner the big guy, Virgil van Dijk? And give you the stats we're going to break season and start with. I don't know. I'm going first on a little key game. What do I want to do? The three in here say, John, I want you to one which one you sell. James, then we can go first. You've been about 500.
I'm gonna get crucified here. Whoever I pick, we're gonna get crucified either way, aren't we? Here.
Yeah. It used to be absolutely useless. That cold sounds like coming back. Come on!
Fine. Lone Gomez, keep Konate, sell Matip.
Okay. It's interesting. This man!
No.
You quicker than decide, and like that was I feel like the show needs to end now after the amount of time it's just taken, James. But what would you go with, Jack?
I mean, I would sell Gomez, loan Konate, and keep Matip.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
It is hard because when I did this, I created this, I was like, what would I do? And the way I worked out is you've got to look at longevity as well. So for me, I had to sell Matip. Even though Matip is potentially like the best partner to Van Dijk, you look at his age, 31, I think he is now.
Yeah.
I had to sell Matip on that basis because I couldn't split it. The loan, I went with, I can't remember what I went with now. I went with the loan. I think I went with Konate to get a bit more experience to be the main man in another team. And then keep Joe Gomez because I just love Joe Gomez. I just think Joe Gomez is ace. But we'll get into that today. We will get into Joe Gomez. So today, what we're going to do, we're going to compare things. We're going to compare these three and then come up with a decision at the end of the show to who should partner Virgil van Dijk the most this season. Before we begin, Jack, who would you pick off the bat right now without going through the stats? Who would you pick?
I mean, I've always liked Matip, so I'd have to stick with him.
I knew you was going to go with
Yeah.
Joel. Big Joel. James, who are you going with if you had to pick right now? Finals tomorrow, who are you playing with, Big Verge?
Joel Matip.
Joel. 2 votes for Joel.
Yeah.
I think I've got to agree. I think Joel Matip is just like tried and trusted, Mr. Like consistent, potentially our best centre-back last season as well. You can't ignore that one. So Joel Matip has to go in there. But we're going to break it down and see if you've got the same answer when it comes to the end of the show. So let's start with a little heat map trivia. So these are 3 heat maps that we've got up on the screen. We've got Matip, I'm not going to tell you the order. So there's Matip, Gomez, and Konate's heat maps are up there in any order. What I want you to do, I'm going to go to Jack first, is tell me which heat map belongs to which person.
Now, I think the middle one is Gomez, and the only reason I say that is that there's a bit of activity happening in the penalty box, and he doesn't go up for corners. So I think the middle one is Gomez.
That's a good shout. If that logic is right, that's a great shout. What about the other 2?
I'm gonna go on the left, Matip, and on the right, Konate.
Okay. James the Brain. What are you going with, James the Brain?
I got to agree with Jack. You know, the one on the left-hand side just screams Joel Matip because of how far forward, like the left-hand side one comes, and we all know that Joel Matip decides that he wants to gallivant on an adventure to wherever he decides to end up.
So we've got Joel Matip, we've got Gomez in the middle, and we've got Konate on the right. Let's see, ladies and gentlemen, if these 2 statistician masters are correct. Bing! Correct! The stat masters. Now, that was great, Jack, what you said, that Gomez stays back for corners. I've actually never noticed that before, but now you've pointed it out, he actually does. Do you think he's like one of the only centre-backs, and I know he plays right back, but centre-back's his main position. Do you think he's one of the only centre-backs in the league that doesn't get forward for corners?
Yeah, I mean, I've not looked into it, but he must be. I mean, I don't know why. I think he's quite good in the air as well, but he's never scored a goal for us, has he?
No.
So, but maybe that's why, it's because he doesn't go.
Maybe that's why a lot of centre-backs get goals from corners. But when you're talking about he's good aerially, his stats actually suggested, when you look at the comparisons, his stats suggested that he was the best at aerial duels percentage-wise. So that's crazy that he doesn't get forward for corners. James, would you like to see Gomez getting forward for corners, or do you think he stays back purely because of his pace?
That's what I was going to say. I think that's probably the main reason that Klopp tells him to stay back, because we all know that Virgil van Dijk is a Rolls Royce. Like, he makes up ground like nobody's business. But I think aerially, Virgil has that dominance, whereas with Gomez, we tend not to see him go further forward. But I think purely because of the pace that he's got, he can maybe make a yard up a little bit faster than like Van Dijk. I mean, Van Dijk makes up yards like it's nobody's business.
Do you know what? I actually think, and I'll ask you who yours is, I think that Gomez, I've not seen him as much lately, but I'd say he's the fastest player in our team. Over 100 meters, I think Gomez is the fastest player in our team. Who would you go with, Jack?
I mean, straight away you think of Diaz, don't you? But
yeah,
over 100 meters, I don't know. Do you know what? Nunes surprised me yesterday with how fast he was.
Do you know what? I forgot about Nunes because he's got some legs.
Yeah.
That's a good shirt.
I would go with Nunes, you know.
You can't, can you write off Virgil as well? Like Virgil van Dijk. Konate is rapid, by the way.
Yeah.
Konate doesn't look quick, but he covers ground. James, who would you go with? He's going to take another hour now.
No, I'd say either Gomez or Van Dijk. I think they're probably the two fastest. You know, you see how quickly Van Dijk can catch up with players like before you've even realised. So,
do you know
be interesting to see
this season. That's what we need to search for, Jack. We'll get down and dirty. That's weird. We'll get into the nitty gritty. We will get. Disclaimer.
It's not past the watershed yet, bro.
It's not past the watershed. We are getting into the nitty gritty. We're going to bring you the paces. So we're going to try and find out the speeds, top speeds of players this season. I think we need a sample of games first. I don't think we're going to go game one, right? The fastest player in our team is such a body because they were the fastest in game one. We'll take a sample and try and come up with it that way. But you know what we do in this show, and it's that time. I've got something for you. It's my betting banker. Now you know
you need to invest in one of these sound things, bro. I
can't be making sounds like that kind of. Do you know what? There's loads of sounds here, but I'm kind of thinking, let's try one. I don't think these would work. Let's see what this is. Yeah, I think they'll leave that one out. Do you know what? I can add sound effects. So I'm going to add, from next week, you heard it here first, I'm going to add sound effects because the betting banker, it needs a sound effect because that's the one. So, everybody who's not tuned into the show before, we use our betting banker. We all get to use it once in the show. We can wait till the end of the show and go back and then place our banking bet, or we can do it right now when you are mid-show. I've used mine right now because we've been talking about corners, getting forward, aerial, whatever. I've got two, and it could be either. But my betting banker for this season, Joe Gomez is going to get his first goal for the club. That's one of my betting bankers, and it's going to be from a corner as well. So they're my betting bankers. I shouldn't have said that because you just told me he doesn't get balls.
Yeah.
I should have left that out, but betting banker, he'll definitely get his first goal for the club, and I'm putting money on it's gonna be from a corner. So that's my betting banker. Remember, any point in the show, you've got to use the sound, boys. No, you don't really. You don't have to use the sound, but when you're speaking, you can go. Do you know what? I want to place my betting banker, and then
I'll throw mine in there now. Then I'll do mine now.
James has got his betting banker, people. James, what's your betting banker?
Matip Konate will score more goals than Virgil van Dijk this season.
Oh, that's better than your last one because your last one was ridiculous and it was stupid and poor. Well, that's a better one. Konate more than Van Dijk. I like that. That's a good one. Jack's patiently sitting. He's waiting.
I've got mine. I'll save it for later, though.
He's waiting for the right moment
to
drop his betting banker right on James's head and make him look like a fool. So what we want to do, we do need to move on with the show. It's not just about heat maps, ladies and gentlemen. It is also about go compare and go compare. So we're going to compare.
You can't be using that. We don't want to get copyright strikes.
I'm sorry, YouTube. I am not comparing the market. There's no meerkats in the building. My mustache doesn't curl round. So, disclaimer, I apologize. I'll block the sound out when I post the show up later. Please don't sue us. Do you know what? I did it that well. Go compare if you want to sponsor the show. Statistically Speaking, sponsored by Go Compare next week. You heard it first. So, comparison. We're here for the stats. This is getting a bit silly now, James. Calm down. It wasn't like that last week. Me and Jack were so professional. We brought the stats So here we go. Comparison. So I want to break it down into categories because when we think of defenders, we always just think, oh, defending. They've got to be good at defending. But I like to see, especially in Liverpool, when we play with such a high line, when our wing-backs get so far forward, our defenders need to be versatile. They need to be multifaceted. So I've broken it down into 3 areas. The first area is kind of you're moving forward with the ball, passing between the lines, getting into the opposition's half and starting off attacks. The second part is going to be defense. And the third part is going to be attacking ability. So we'll look first at progressive movements. Jack, from the list, and I know I've picked out dribbles per 90, dribble success, progressive runs, touches in the box.
Mm-hmm.
If someone came to you and went, Liverpool centre-backs, getting forward, dribbling, progressive runs, who's the best? Who would you say without looking at the stats?
I would go with Matip. I mean, we all know how many times he loves to just take the ball up into midfield. So I think straight away that would scream out Matip for me.
Yeah, like I said, Matip is the classic, isn't it? We all want one of those Matip adventures to go in. Last season it kind of did, but it was a little kind of 1-2 kind of thing. But that's what we want to see. I want more control, though, from Matip. I want a little bit more control and don't let the ball run away from you. But when we look at it, James, dribbles per 90, we've got Joel Matip with 0.46, Joe Gomez with 0.77, and Ibu Konate 0.44. But when we look at the success rate, because we know Gomez can play right back, so we might see a few more dribbles if he's at right back. But when we look at success rate, we've got 61% for Joel Matip, 65% for Joe Gomez, and 69% for Ibu Konate. Is that what I was kind of saying? I know it's not a big gap, a big margin, but Matip's success rate is the lowest when it comes to dribbling. Do we get distracted because he goes on such an adventure thinking he is the best dribbling centre-back, when really Gomez and Konate are so good at that first touch and stepping up between the lines and taking the attacker out of the game? That's what I really like from them. Would you say that these stats kind of don't tell the whole story?
I think so. Yeah, you know, we all see Joel Matip go on these mazy runs, and I've said it before, but he always reminds me of like a giraffe, because he's running the way that he runs. It's not like a versatile run. It just looks like a giraffe on roller skates. Whereas Gomez and Konate, they've got the touch, and it's a lot more fluid. But you know, we all want to see Matip and that do well and going forward. So yeah.
And when we speak about this, Jack, like we've just said, the percentages, yeah, success rate is one thing, but 8% when it comes to a centre-back with dribbling percentages, that's nothing. The one that really stands out for me, and I know it stood out for you, was the progressive runs. We look at this now, and this is where you kind of see what Matip does. 2.12 progressive runs per 90 minutes. Then you've got Gomez with 0.86, and then you've got Konate with 1.07. For anyone that doesn't know, Jack, because you're the stat man in the building, explain what progressive run means. Is it a certain distance? What defines a progressive run?
Yeah, so a progressive run is basically when you've got the ball and you're carrying it from your goal closer to the opposition goal by like 30 meters, or from your own half into the opposition half. So the higher the number, the closer you're getting to the attacker's goal.
Yeah. So basically here, what this is saying then, Jack, is that Joel Matip likes to step up into midfield. He's the one that does go on those amazing runs. And sometimes when you look at the game, it kind of helps Liverpool, doesn't it? As much as he loses control, he's drawing defences out. And we see a few times when he does these runs, yes, he might lose the ball, or it might deflect, or it might get messy, but we get chances from them, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. You can probably pick loads from last season. I remember Leeds. I think he actually scored from it last season. He played a 1-2 and scored from it. But yeah, he does it so often during the games, and I think the fans love it. Every time he gets the ball, I think you can hear it in the crowd. They know what he's going to do. And to be honest with me, I think if he does lose the ball as well, we've always got Fabinho who just steps in behind and covers him. So I don't really find it too much of an issue.
That's the beauty of... Go on, James.
Do you two think then, because we see it mainly from Joel Matip rather than Konate and Gomez when he plays, do you think it's a Klopp thing as with Joel Matip going on these runs? Because we don't see it from like the other players, or do you think it's just something that Matip has adapted to his game and Klopp's just gone, yeah, do you know what, like run with it? Because it only ever seems to be him that does it.
Yeah, I think 100% it's Matip. I think that's part of his game that he does enjoy. When you watch the inside training videos, inside Anfield, inside access videos, he's always in training doing this kind of thing. He's getting forward, he's adventurous, he's trying to score goals in training. And I think it's become the kind of banter within the dressing room that's what Matip does. But when I watch Konate, when I watch Gomez, they've got that in their locker if they need to. But I think they're just a bit more conservative with it in sense of, I think Matip loses the ball a bit. And when he loses the ball, he's constantly trying to chase it and catch it up. So he's constantly trying to knock it around the next player, and he thinks, I'm this far now, I might as well try and go all the way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what happens, but he's definitely got that in his locker. And I like it. I do like it, but it puts me on edge sometimes. But like you said, we've got Fabinho, and if you've got Fabinho, you're safe.
Yeah.
If you've got Hendo, you're safe. The final one on this list is touches in the box. So it's not so much progressive runs. It could be headers. And I looked at this, and because you've just said, Jack, Gomez stays back for corners, I was like, okay, that explains a lot now. So per 90 minutes, we've got 0.6 for Matip, 0.12 for Joe Gomez, and 0.64 for Konate. Do you think this stat is mainly your headers, if the winning headers getting in the box, Jack?
Yeah, 100%. That's what it'll be. Because I think it'll be the odd time you'll see it from Matip when he's doing one of his runs, but other than that, yeah, it'll just be from corners.
100%. So that's kind of covered our progressive running. I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that this is Matip's niche. This is where Matip comes into his own. He likes to get forward, but we're not denying that Konate and Gomez do have that in their locker, and they do it in a different way. So let's try and compare then the defensive stats, because I don't know about you, James, but if you're a defender, I kind of want you to defend. I don't care if you can go on these amazing runs. I kind of want you to stop goals going in my goal. Yeah. So I'm going to break these down. Aerial duels, interceptions per 90, defensive duels 1, and fouls per 90 minutes. Now, aerial duels 1 is different. Well, I say it's different to what the percentages are saying, but it's not really. When we look at aerial duels, 3.85 for Matip, 4.92 for Gomez, and 4.8 for Konate. Do you think, James, that Gomez's aerial duels are higher because he's smaller and opposition teams might target the smaller man, especially when you're next to Virgil van good-looking, handsome Mandisi?
Yeah, I think because we've all seen it that players will try and avoid Van Dijk as best as they can. You know, and I think that's probably why Gomez is so high. And you know, when the year that we won the league, him and Van Dijk were probably the best centre-back partnership in the league. And I'm still adamant that a fully fit Joe Gomez is probably England's best centre-back. Like we all know what Gomez is capable of,
James,
and it's just unfortunate.
60% Gomez is England's best centre-back. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, we know that, but and he's just been unfortunate with injuries. Now, I hope that Gomez stays fit this whole season, and all three of them get an opportunity to play against Van Dijk, and they all give Klopp a massive headache and go, actually, I might not have my concrete centre-backs anymore. I might be able to keep switching the three of them round and not be worried.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, these stats that we're giving now are based on when they play at centre-back. So, for example, we have seen Gomez play at right-back, but we've just brought the centre-back stats, because that's what Jack does. Jack is the stat guy. Like, if you're not following Anfield Analytics, you're under a rock. Get over there now. Follow them. So I say follow them. It's literally just Jack. It's like there's no like magical team of elves getting all these stats. Like every stat you see is like literally Jack, which is madness. But Jack, we move on to the percentage one. Now, maybe because of the kind of bombardment. When Gomez is playing there, there's a big difference because teams will think this guy, compared to Matip, Konate, Van Dijk, who are physical monsters, this guy's there to be had. So that the percentages kind of might not speak to that because he's lower than Matip, but 65% won for Joel Matip, 62% for Gomez, and 59% for Konate. Now, I read these out because Konate is the one I want to pinpoint. Probably, I'm putting my neck on the line to say he might be our strongest defender. He's potentially our fastest, most physical defender. But do you think Konate has a tendency to try and win a duel when it's not there to be won? Because when you look at Matip and Van Dijk, we all know that they like to do the jockeying. They like to drop off if the ball's not there to be won. Could Konate improve in that area for you, Jack?
Yeah, and I think that's why Matip's area duels per 90 are lower as well. He kind of reads the game a bit better, and that's just the age that's coming through there. I think Konate's had a season now. I think he will get better with that next season, and his decision making in defensive duels will be better, and I think his percentage then will become a lot higher.
It's so scurvy that you say age, because when you look at it, 22. Konate is 22. Footballers, no. The peak used to be 28. They've made that now 30, 31 years of age is your peak as a footballer in the modern day. He's 8 years away from being the best version of himself. That is terrifying to me. Yeah. James, he's a physical specimen. He's a monster. But not only that, he's so good with the ball at his feet as well.
Yeah, if we know what Konate is capable of. He's only had a season with Liverpool, and he can only improve. I think for me, the only slight criticism I have of Konate, and I think you two have spotted it as well, is he has a tendency to overcommit with his headers, and it can cost us. I think he might have been at fault for the Wolves goal on the last day of the season. He's not giving himself that split second longer to actually read it before he's going for it. And, like I said, he's still young. He's still got time to develop. I think that's probably one of the main developed things he needs to do. But, it's still time.
I think you look at the Champions League games where we were on the edge of our seats, Benfica, Villarreal. Konate was over-egging it. He was caught up in the moment. He was stepping up when he didn't need to step up. And we know how high Trent plays. Once you're in behind that right centre-back, you're getting a chance no matter what. And we saw that a few times. But like we said, age, you will learn that. But when we look at defensive duels, I like this one because duels, when you talk about Liverpool centre-backs, I love to watch them defend because I feel like we have the best technical defenders on the planet in Joel Matip and Virgil van Dijk. I feel like Matip never used to do this as much, but when we went through that season, can you remember when Virgil van Dijk didn't get dribbled past? Yeah. And it was the constant Virgil van Dijk, he drops off his player and he goes, come on then. Yeah. Like, take me on. Try and go around the outside. You've got to beat me. I'm not just going to jump in. Matip started to do that. So you might look at stats and you might think, actually, there's not that many defensive duels. But is that down to the style of defending that we're seeing now from our centre-backs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stepping off and just waiting for your defenders then to recover and help you get the ball back. And then most of the time when Van Dijk does that, the players just get flustered and actually lose the ball themselves. Van Dijk doesn't even need to do anything.
Literally, they just go, do you know what? I don't want it. I'm not even
trying. I think it was Inter Milan last season when someone just gave him the ball and just gave up.
Yeah, it was Jack. Was it not Dzeko? Was it AC Milan when Dzeko was going against him? And
Oh,
Sanchez
that was
did it.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
Sanchez
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
A few
Sanchez
times
was.
in those games. It's the same with Lautaro Martinez. The game we lost, he just didn't want to dribble at Van
Yeah,
Dijk. So
yeah.
he thought, do you know
No.
what? I'm just going to hit a shot.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it went in like a world-class
Oh,
goal.
yeah.
But
The thing is, as well, though, with Van Dijk is he's so clever the way that he does it, because he always puts them onto their weaker foot. Like he's always going, right, come on, and we'll go to my side. I'm not asked. I'll take you on all day. And then
yeah,
the players that he's always going up against, they either have to try and find another pass that's probably already covered by Gomez or Konate or Matip, or they've got to take the weak foot shot on. And like Van Dijk's just such a clever defender.
it's the way he slows the game down. He does it in a way where he immediately drops so far off them, and then it makes them think like, right, what do I do? And in that moment, the game's just slowed down completely, and then he can shimmy back. He's literally not wasting any energy. He's not using any energy. When you look at Slabhead trying to head the ball off the floor, and then you look at Van Dijk just shove, like, that's the difference in class. And you know what? You might have beat us 4-0, but I don't even care, because that was your Champions League final yesterday, Man United. That was your Champions League final.
Don't get me started on that result yesterday.
We're not even talking about.
Twitter was just stupid yesterday.
It was ridiculous. But we talk about these duels, and I want to mention the numbers. So Matip 4.85, Gomez 4.82, and Konate 5.64 per 90 minutes. So again, that kind of shows that Matip doing the style of dropping off. Gomez got that style as well because he backs himself with pace. Konate, again, jumping in a little bit too soon. But the percentages are the interesting one. Matip, 74% of duels won, 69% for the other two. Still high. And it's crazy because I'd love to see this, but you're looking at other teams and you're probably looking at like 50 percentage. That's a good percentage, probably around that mark. They're taking the league to a whole new level. To win every 3 out of 4 challenges that you go into, that's crazy as a defender, because it's so easy for attackers to just knock the ball around them. And again, Jack, it's testament, isn't it, to the patience. Let everybody get back. Let Fabinho come in and help us out.
Yeah, and I think it's also quite good because we don't actually concede that many chances. So for them to be that high in percentage-wise, it means we really aren't conceding that many chances onto Alisson at all. It's
madness, and we still got the best goalkeeper in the world as well behind him.
Yeah.
Like if you're an attacker and you're looking at these three, even if these three were our centre backs and we didn't have Van Dijk, I'd be confident. I'd be like, do you know what? That's a good three to interchange throughout a season. But then to have the best centre back that's ever walked the planet of the earth, I'm sorry if anyone disagrees, but for me, he's the best centre back that I've ever seen. To have him with these three to interchange, it's absolute madness. James, I want to look at fouls per 90. Who do you think has the most fouls per 90? Based off what we've just said, who do you think?
I mean, without even having to look at the stats, I think the obvious answer is Ibu Konate, and that's no disrespect to him.
It is Ibu. Again, he's young, he's enthusiastic, he's hungry. But we're not talking about Gomez in these situations. Is that a testament to how collected, how calm, how mature he is? 24 years of age, I think Gomez is. He might be turning 25 this season.
I think so.
That's madness to think he's still got 5-6 years until he hits his prime. Is Gomez notoriously underrated for how good he is? James the Brain.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure who you were asking. Yeah, no, 100%. You know, everybody criticizes Gomez. Like, yes, okay, he has had his injuries, and they've been unfortunate injuries. You know, I've said it before. Him and Van Dijk were pivotal to this season. We won the Premier League. You know, I mean, Jack might be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think when Gomez first came into the Liverpool side, he was quite like Konate. He was quite sloppy, and spending the time with Van Dijk and adapting his game with Van Dijk shows what the players are capable of. I think he give Konate another 2-3 years with Van Dijk, and I think if we look back on these stats in a couple of years' time, I think they'll be a lot different. I'm glad that.
Go on, James. You glad?
I'm glad that Gomez got the contract. You know, there was talk of him being sold, and I think the club have made the right decision because, you
100%.
know, we probably haven't got much longer of Van Dijk and Matip. You know, they're both getting a little bit older. Gomez and Konate, for me, are the future Liverpool Football Club as centre backs.
Do you know what? We're saying Gomez didn't play that much last season. I did a show not long ago, and he actually appeared quite a lot of times for Liverpool last season. Yes, it might have been at right back to cover for Trent, but he still got those games under his belt. Yeah. I think he doesn't sign that contract unless he's been promised he's going to get that rotation game time. Klopp rates him. We know that when we look at the 1920 season, like Klopp rates Gomez very highly. And like you said, 2 years' time, one more year I give Matip like at the top level. 2 years' time, you might be thinking, right, is Van Dijk now looking at having a bit less game time? They can wait. Konate and Gomez would go, do you know what? 2 years, 27, 24, that's like perfect timing to become like Liverpool's main centre-back pairing. What do you think of Gomez, Jack? Are you a fan?
Oh, yeah, definitely a fan. I think, like James said before, he was pivotal in our league winning season. There was times where he actually saved Van Dijk. But, I mean, I think the news came out today that Klopp mentioned that he was going to be rotating the centre-back pairings this season because we're going to be playing like 3 games a week up until the World Cup. Gomez wants to get into the World Cup, so does Konate. So that's going to be huge for them. So they'll be trying everything they can to get into the team.
Yeah, exactly. It's mad to think that Konate is not a given for France. Like when you look at it, like he was Champions League. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure Konate started every Champions League game last season or there or thereabouts. He started a high percentage of them. To be that good, to get us to a final, to be the only, I'm just thinking now, to be the only French defender in that Champions League final, you've got to be surely in the French national. I know he's been called up to the team, but he's still not a starter for them. I think he should be nailed on for what he does.
And I think Klopp uses him in bigger games, even in the league. Like he played the 5-0 at United. Yeah, games like that, he does trust him.
There must be something about him that he really likes, and maybe it's the contrast in what Virgil van Dijk does, where Matip's very similar. Konate contrast to what Van Dijk does. But I want to move on to the... James, don't you dare start this. Jack did not interrupt me once last week, and now you're coming with this interruption game. I want to move on to the last one. It's attacking stats now. I know for a defender, you don't really look that much into attacking stats, but I think these three and Virgil van Dijk, they're kind of a product of a lot of our success going forward. When you talk about our midfield lacking in creativity, I feel like a lot, James, starts from our centre-back pairing. You look in the modern game, centre-backs, right-backs, left-backs, they touch the ball the most in Premier League games now. So these three and Van Dijk, so attacking-minded, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we've seen it before. So many of our attacks come from Alisson and the back four. You know, look at Alisson's distribution for Salah's goal against United that season at Anfield. It's, you know, that back four, back five, they're just key to what we do. You know, it's all well and good, like Salah, Mane, Firmino, Jota, putting the balls in the back of the net. But you look at where the balls actually come from, and it's either from Trent, Virgil, or Alisson 9 times, or Robbo 9 times out of 10. You know, there's always a crossfield ball from one of those four. And
this stat for me, Jack, I was baffled when I saw it. I thought that's like a stat that you're looking at. Trent, you're looking at one of your creative midfielders, but passes into the final third per 90 minutes. 7 for Joel Matip. This is in 90 minutes. 7 for Matip, 9 for Gomez, and 7.86 for Konate. The success rate, 77%, 70%, and 76%. For centre-backs, that is mad, isn't it?
I mean, it is, but then I think if you think of the way we play, we have such a high line. Like, there's times where we have every single player in their half other than Alisson. Yeah. So I think playing those passes into the final third probably includes just on the edge of it to our midfielders, probably.
To say Trent on the wing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what that'll be included in. But yeah, it's still a high success rate, though.
Exactly. And we look at like the shots, James, the shot assist per 90 minutes. It's not as high, but for attackers, for example, 0.12, 0.14, 0.074, defenders to kind of get a shot assist, that's unheard of. But Liverpool do things so differently that we've got to look sometimes, haven't we, to our centre-backs to kind of make the magic happen. If you look at Van Dijk, probably pound for pound, for me, the best player in world football, if you're taking into consideration what a position means. Van Dijk does centre-back's job with ease, but he does that creative job. Those 80-yard passes that pick out Sadio, I can't say it, Sadio's gone, but Virgil to Sadio, how many times have we seen that and Sadio getting on the end of it and he's got a shot attempt? We're going to miss that a little bit with Sadio, but do you think we'll still see that with Van Dijk? And which other centre-back do you feel can offer that kind of ball?
To be honest, I think any three of them could do it. You know, I think once they get back into the rhythm of the connection with Núñez and with Diaz and with Salah, I think the balls, the crossfield balls are just going to become pivotal. You know, how many times have we seen Liverpool struggle to break down teams? You know, they have such a high block and they just seem to park the bus. And I think with Núñez coming in, with Diaz having a full season, I think it's going to be a very, very scary thing for Liverpool next season, for the season coming.
It really is. And do you know what? I noticed this season, Ibu Konate, he's got that 80-yard pass in his locker. I've seen it a few times. It's so nice, Jack, to see a 22-year-old in his first season at the best club in the world have the confidence to come in such huge games. Like, wasn't his first game against Manchester United? I think his Premier League. Premier League debut was against Manchester United.
Yeah, it was the 5-0, wasn't it? At Old Trafford, I think that was his Premier League debut.
To come in and be so confident at 22 years of age to do that and hit those type of passes. His future is going to be so bright, isn't it, at Liverpool?
Yeah, he is ridiculous. And Klopp likes those type of players. I think he tells his players to be brave on the ball, and it's good that he allows them to play the way they can. And they're all different in their own way, aren't they? So,
do you think, if you had to put money on it now, do you think Konate could be better in the future than Virgil van Dijk?
No.
James?
Van Dijk's too good.
No. No. I think it's going to take a hell of a lot for somebody to be better than Virgil van Dijk.
I'll tell you why he won't. Because he's going to base his game off Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk has not based his game off any centre-back in the history of football. He's changed the way that centre-backs are viewed. He's the modern day. I feel like Rio Ferdinand came in and he was kind of the modern-day centre-back. And then Van Dijk's come in and he's just revolutionised the way a centre-back can play. Like, it's never going to be done again. I can't see that role ever changing as much as Van Dijk's made it. So dominant, so easy. Like, Konate's good, but if he is that good, it's going to be because he's learned from the greatest of all time, in my opinion. So I agree. So what I want to do with this now, yes, we've got goals and assists. In fact, I'll just read you the goals scored and I'll read you the assists. So we've got goals, 7 for Matip. This is since 2018, since Van Dijk arrived. 7 for Matip, none for Gomez, as we've explained. But that's my betting banker this season. And Konate, 3 goals in his first season. And then we look at assists, 5 for Matip, 1 for Gomez, 1 for Konate. Matip dominates this in terms of goals and assists, 7 and 5, but his playing times have been a lot more than the other two. Konate, 3 and 1 for a centre-back in one season, Jack. That's great going, isn't it?
Yeah. I think he scored 2 and 2, didn't he, against Benfica?
Yeah.
From the corners, and then against Man City in the semi-final.
Yeah.
Of the FA Cup. So that's a huge advantage for us next season with corners. The height we've got in there now. But yeah, I think we, like you said before, we missed that goal threat from midfield. Maybe it can help having goals coming from defenders through corners or free kicks.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one. What I want to do before we move on to the next part, James, I want to just tell you, out of all these stat categories that we've gone through, so we've got minutes played, goals, assists, goals per 90, defensive, duels, fouls, and all the assists you can come up with. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4 categories. 24 categories.
So we've got that high.
You are a filthy pig, Mr. Gazerbay. You got it. You're in for it now. I'm going to pick my moment so good now. Listen, I'll have you know I did A-level maths, just so everybody knows. I got my degree and I was a PE teacher, so just so everyone knows, let's just hold James to account. I'll not ask James about what he did, but I'm not bitter like that. But James, you've got it coming to you. So, 24 stats to choose from. When we look at how many each player has won, I'm going to pop it up now. We've got 10 categories won for Matip. We've got 9 won for Joe Gomez and 5 for Ibu Konate. Now, that to me doesn't tell the full story. And I've put that up there again. Let me just put it up again. 10, 9, and 5. And I've put it up there for Konate. Konate's only won 5 categories. But when I look down this list, he is bottom of the least amount of categories. So it shows that he sits in that range. And for me, I don't know about you, James, would you say that Konate, not the highest in most categories, not the lowest, sits in that mid-range? Would you say he's our most well-rounded defender?
Yeah, I think he's got the strength, he's got the height. I think the only thing, like I've said before, the only thing he really needs to work on is overcommitment. But again, like we've said, he's still young, he's still got time to develop.
Bearing in mind that 2 of those, we've got minutes played and assists, the 2 that he sits the lowest in. And then there's only 5 more categories that he sits the lowest in. And that is dribbles per 90, clearances per 90, and offensive duels 1. So Konate on there, Jack, even though he's only won 5, do you think that that's a great basis to base off you're good at everything, rather than looking at Matip and being like he's that kind of attacking kind of centre-back who's good at the progressive runs? Then you've got Gomez who's good at clearances and recovery things. Konate, apart from jumping in, that's his only weakness. He's quite well-rounded, like I said, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And these differences between the centre-backs, we're talking fine margins here as well. Like it's not like a huge difference between them. And he's only going to get better.
It's mad. Like the biggest one, looking down the list, the only thing I can really separate anybody on is the dribbles per 90, and Gomez is 0.77, 0.46. But that's not even one whole one. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to look at that list, and you're talking. There's a margin of 10% on everything that they all fall within. So it shows that how do you choose? And this is what we're trying to do today, Jack. We're trying to choose who partners Van Dijk, but is this perfect for resting Matip Slates? Because he is injury prone a little bit, giving Gomez the progressive time that he needs to recover from that big injury that he had, and to give Konate enough time to develop his game.
Yeah, absolutely. And got to remember, again, we've got 5 subs this season. So you could see a lot of rotation. And with 3 games a week, I think it's very feasible that you'll see all 3 a lot.
James the Brain, we're talking about who's going to partner Van Dijk. Do you think we might see quite a few games of 2 of these 3 partnering each other? I know we talk about domestic cups. That probably will happen. But like Premier League games, I'd be happy if Van Dijk got rested a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the partnerships with like Matip and Gomez, or Matip and Konate, or Gomez and Konate, I think will happen when we get a bit further into the Champions League, when we've got maybe not such an important Premier League game on the Saturday, and then an important Champions League quarterfinal on the Tuesday. You know, Klopp has got to rest it. And one thing I do want to say, though, looking at these stats, you know, like you've just said, Ash, Konate's only bottom for about 4 or 5, but that's quite scary considering he's only had 1 season with Liverpool. You know, Matip and Gomez have had 3 or 4 seasons now.
Yeah.
What we look at these stats maybe the end of next season or the season after. What are they going to look like for Konate? You know, it's quite a scary thought that it's only after 1 season and he's got stats like this.
It is scary. And I like the way that you do the stats, Jack, because we can make it's a fair playground. It's very even because you're doing per 90 minutes and percentages. So when you look at that, you can base it off the whole total for themselves. Exactly. So it makes it fair. But when you look at it, like Konate's only played just over 2,500 minutes of football. Yeah. And both the others are double what Konate's had and more. Like Matip's nearly getting close to 10,000 minutes. So I understand what you're saying, James. Like, getting used to the team still, and is this dominant, it's a scary prospect. But I want to break the show up a little bit before we move on to the next part, because you know that every week, and I wonder if James has brought his little thing this week. Every week we do Jack versus James. Did you know? Bum, bum, bum. So, did you know? It is that part of the week. Look at those little faces right there. Look at them both, eh? Jack and James. It's that part of the week where Jack and James bring a random stat to the show that is marrying in what we are discussing. So, for example, it's got to relate to the subject, which is who partners Van Dijk, or is it Gomez, is it Matip, is it Konate? It's got to relate to one of them. So, who was the last person to speak then? I think it was Jack, wasn't it? In fact, we'll just throw it on James anyway, because James has been he's been ditching us, and he's been so disrespectful of saying I can't count to 24. So, James the Brain, your last stat, by the way, was shocking in this game. James's last stat was it something like Kane scores more goals than Fabinho or something like that? Yeah, James, that was such a rubbish stat. It's got to be like, wow, did you know? Did you know? And James coming, he was like, did you know that Keita, an attacking midfielder, scores more than our defensive midfielder? Oh, you've blown us away, James. So today, I want a lot more from you in this section called Did You Know? So, James the Brain, what's your stat this week?
Joe Gomez has a better goals conceded per game percentage than Konate and Matip.
James, have you just made that up off the top of your head there?
You haven't yet. No, James, Jack.
No, he did message me earlier. telling me what he'd done.
It was like, what can I think of, right? Well, so basically, James has just said that Gomez concedes less goals per game than Matip and Konate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gomez has conceded 63 goals in 87 games. This is in the Premier League, by the way. Konate conceded 10 goals in 11 games, and Matip conceded 95 goals in 126 games.
I like that one. It's better, James. It's not elite, but it's better. They're creeping up. Just make it look like you actually thought about the stat first when you read it out next week. So that's your stat. Jack the Statman, what have you got for us today?
Okay, so it's a bit of a long one, this one, but out of all of our main defenders, Joe Gomez has the highest injury rate for his Liverpool career. Throughout his Liverpool career, he's been injured for 35% of it, 136 games.
That's great. That's a lot. That's over a third of games that he's missed.
Joel Matip is second with 99 games missed through injury. Van Dijk is third with 55, but 45 were from that one big injury. Exactly.
Yeah.
Trent is fourth with only 17 games, and Andy Robertson, 1 game out injured out of 282.
Shut up. Wow. That is mad. 1 game.
1 game out injured.
Can you name the game?
No, I can't remember the game.
Robbo, true Braveheart. Robbo plays with injuries, that's why. You know Robbo just chucks an energy drink down his neck, gets a tranquilizer dart, and then he's away, he's ready to... That's mad. 1 game. 1. Wow. And you know what? I would have said Matip as well was the most injury-prone.
Yeah, but I think...
out of them all.
I think Gomez, he got injured in that first season, didn't he?
Yeah. He was out a lot when he came from Charlton, and he broke into the first team.
Yeah.
He got injured that first season.
Matip was injured for a lot of the season we won the league as well, wasn't he? So that's...
It's kind of like they alternate between seasons when they want to get injured.
Don't say that, don't say that.
Let's hope none of them get injured.
Right, let's move on then with the show. I like that. I'm going to put it to the public if the public are in. Whose stat is better? I don't even need to ask. Jack, you win. Well done. Congratulations. Jack's stat wins again this week. Andy Robertson. That's the one I've took from this. Andy Robertson has missed 1 game from 200 due to injury. That is mad. Because I thought a bit in that our title winning season, but a lot of it was COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's obviously not due to it. That's amazing. I love that. So let's move on the show anyway. These were the minutes played last season. So when we look at this from last season, it's a shame on Gomez because, yes, Gomez was fit, but do you think, Jack, that Gomez was a victim of Matip and Konate's success last season?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is just for when he was playing at centre-back these minutes. He played a lot of games last season at right-back. So, I think you're right. I think it was trying not to disrupt that partnership with Matip and Van Dijk. Yeah,
I agree with that. And it is a shame because when he was injured, we were crying out for Gomez. Gomez was the guy that we knew Van Dijk was injured. We knew we would miss him. But we've always felt a bit confident thinking, do you know what? We've got Gomez. We've got Matip. We would be all right in a sense. But that season, the wheels just fell off. James, if you had to choose one centre-back from this season who you think has performed the best, which one of those 3 would you choose?
I think Matip. I think it's difficult because we've not really seen much of Gomez at centre back. Like Jack said, he spent predominantly most of his time at right back. Am I right in thinking though? But was Gomez a right back at Charlton when we signed him, or was he always a centre back?
He was both again. He could play right back and centre back.
Yeah, I think that's why Klopp trusts him so much on that right hand side. You know, he doesn't always want to have to rely on James Milner, who probably has won his 20 millionth lactate test again during pre-season.
He is ridiculous, that fella. Like, he's crazy. Like, that's an example of a professional, isn't it? But we look again, Jack, at this season, and one that stands out for me, and I like that you've put this one in there, it's the average league position of the opposition that we've played. Now, Gomez doesn't have one in there because we probably couldn't find an average because he didn't play that many.
I think he played 5 minutes against Tottenham, I think, and that was it.
So we look at Konate and Matip. Matip, average league position was 12th, and Konate was 9th. That's of the opposition we played. That's what you said before, isn't it?
Yeah.
Klopp seems to be backing Konate in those big games. Why do you think he chooses him in those games?
Do you know what? I'm not really sure. I don't know. Just thinking of the opposition, I don't know if it's just the pure strength of Konate. Like, he's so good at winning the ball back against these top players like Ronaldo, Harry Kane. Yeah. And I think that's what it is. I think Matip's there for more control, possession-wise games.
If you look at opposition that you would play, do you think that maybe when we play against a team that's going to sit there in a low block, James, Matip might be the best defender to play in there then, because he's good at holding the play up, jockeying the defender, so we get players back? Because if we're playing a team in a low block, everyone's going to be advanced up the field. And then Konate's playing against these teams that want to go toe-to-toe. Because you look at Man City with Foden, with Jesus, with Sterling last season. This season, I don't even want to say the names of people they've got because I'm a bit scared. But they've got to come up against these beasts that we've got. So would you still stick to that blueprint this season where Konate is going to go toe-for-toe with teams that are going to play against us and try and come up against us, whereas Matip is the guy that's going to be rested a little bit, low block teams, so he can progress up the field?
Yeah, definitely. I think the prime example of it was when we played Chelsea. I don't think Matip played at all in any of the Chelsea games. I think it was always Konate because of the strength of Lukaku. You know, we've all seen what Lukaku can do to, like, skinnier defenders, where when he came up against Van Dijk and Konate, he didn't really get a sniff of the ball because the strength is just too high with Konate. I think it'll be interesting to see who he plays when we play City, when they've got the likes of Haaland, Alvarez, and players like that. You know, I think, yeah, it'll be a good one this season. I think a lot of the teams are improving. You know, Sterling's gone to Chelsea. That for me seems a bit of a silly mistake from City letting Sterling go. But we'll just have to wait and see.
There's going to be some great matchups, by the way. Get the popcorn ready, because the Premier League this season is definitely, with Spurs, the signings they're making. Yeah. Arsenal are making some interesting signings as well. Man City they've taken it to a whole new level, in my opinion. Like, that's why I worry. I don't worry, but I feel like Liverpool have just maintained the level. But I feel like City have taken it up a level, which is like we're relying heavily now on Darwin Núñez, on these new players to kind of hit the ground running and improve our team. Jack, we speak about low block suits Matip, high adrenaline, face-to-face, toe-to-toe suits Konate. Which one of those styles would you maybe slot Gomez into? What type of team would you play Gomez against next season?
Probably more of a low block. I think that's why Klopp trusts him on the right back, because we know he can progress the ball up the pitch as well. Yeah. So I think in those type of games, he'd probably be better suited at centre back if we had to choose between him and Konate.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Let's move this forward then. So that's last season's stats. I want to talk a bit more subjectively now rather than objectively. We bring the stats to every show, but it's good to have opinion to back it up. As good as stats are, and I'm a massive believer in stats. Everyone will tell you. You know, everyone in the group. They're like, oh, here he is again. He wants to talk about progressing. And people like to base it off what they see on the pitch. I agree with both kind of ways of looking at a game. Best seasons. So we talk about 1920. I'd probably say 1920 for both Matip and Gomez potentially as the best seasons. Konate this season, sensational. Based on top potential, the way they can all play, would you still stick with Matip, James, if you were to go in a final tomorrow and you knew one of these three was going to bring their A game? Would you still stick with Matip?
Yeah, purely because of his slightly more experience than the other two. But I think regardless as to who you, out of those three, whoever you stick at centre back next to Van Dijk, I think he's going to do a solid job regardless.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But we look at 1920 again, Jack, and Gomez everyone was talking about him as the partnership was one of the best the Premier League's ever seen with Gomez and Van Dijk. Do you think it is just injury that's kind of hindered that progression? Do you think the season after we would have seen Gomez, Van Dijk? Would we have Konate today if those injuries did not happen in 2021, do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because we lost Lovren, didn't we? And I think he always wanted that fourth centre-back anyway. So, I don't think injuries really played a part in getting Konate. But yeah, it's just a shame, isn't it, for Gomez, really? I think he really had that amazing season, and it was looking like he was just going to get to that next level, and it just injury hit him again.
Sensational that season. He played 3 times as many matches as Matip in that 1920 season. And to come through after the season before, Joe Matip played over double the amount of games that Gomez did. It showed that Klopp wanted that transition, James. I feel like if Klopp had his way, Matip probably wouldn't be in the picture right now. But is that testament to how good of a professional Joel Matip is, that despite other players coming in, he's always happy with whatever game time he gets. And when he plays, he shows his value to our team. Free transfer, James.
Yeah.
Who's better, Milner or Matip?
I think they're both as good as each other, to be fair. I think
That's
the thing with
question, James. The question was, you have to choose one. Which was the best free transfer, Milner or Matip?
Matip. It's close. I think the thing with Joel Matip as well, though, is like you've just said, he could have, when Gomez came in, he could have just down tools and gone, you know what, I can't be arsed. And he could have done, I'm not saying that Lovren did this, but he could have been a bit like Lovren and gone, you know what, I think I'll go elsewhere. I've probably got more chance of like getting game time. Whereas Matip's gone, do you know what? No, I'm gonna show Klopp that you can still rely on me. And I think with Konate coming in, it was always the one I always saw was it was always between Konate and Upamecano as to which one we were going to go with. And I think based on the performances of both of them, I think Klopp made the right choice in going with Konate and not Upamecano.
100% completely. I think it's been a shame for Upamecano with his move across to Bayern, but he's still a top-class player. Like, he is unbelievable. At the time, we were like him, Koulibaly as well. We were saying we'd like him in, but his age was a little bit older. When they mentioned Konate, I was like, who's this? I didn't know if he was a right back, left back, centre. I didn't know, but it's worth mentioning that Konate can play right back and he can play left. Like, he can play wing back as well. I don't want to see him there, but that's something that he did offer at Leipzig. But maybe that's because he was like the little kind of brother to, I say little brother, he's a beast, but to a Upamecano, who was their main kind of choice. But Jack, what I'd say is, we can only base Konate's progress off his first season. If Konate comes into this next season playing the way he did, but progressing a little bit better, is he going to force Matip and Gomez out of the picture because if he plays any better than he did last season, I want him to play all the games. It's not a case of, give Gomez and Matip a chance. He's young. He can do it. He's got the fatigue, the fitness at that age. I want to see him play a lot of games.
This is my betting banker, actually.
Oh, wait, we've got him.
Yeah.
The betting banker. Jack, hit us with your betting banker.
I still think Matip's going to play more games than either of these two.
Oh, that's a big show.
Yeah, and it's not because of them not playing well or anything. I just think it's because of rotation, and I think if they get into the World Cup, I think Matip's going to be used more.
Yeah,
that's a good point, because the World Cup, it might be after the World Cup when we see Matip being used because saving the legs. That's a great point. You're looking at England and France as well, teams that could go all the way. I like that. See, he thinks about these things. James, he doesn't just throw something in there and go, "Oh, you know what? I got to score more goals than Van Dijk next season." He doesn't just throw it off the cuff. You just did the exact case I just did, so don't even say that you don't do that. I like what you said. Let me just repeat that for everybody else. Matip to have more appearances next season than Konate and Gomez. James, good shout that, isn't it?
Yeah, very good shout. You know, Cameroon aren't in the World Cup, and even if they were, Matip doesn't have anything to do with them anymore. You know, that Konate and Gomez are both going to want to come in to this and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to show why I should be in this World Cup." So yeah, is he back? Or is he gone?
Not worried. Can you hear me?
Oh, he's back. Yeah.
I thought he ditched us. I thought he'd left us to run the show, Jack.
Never ditch you two. The camera has just gone off for a second, so I'm going to leave my avatar on for a second whilst I get the camera back working again. It's probably better that you don't have to see my face, but I like that. Let me just say, Jack's betting banker is that Matip is going to play more games next season than any of the other two, Gomez and Konate. That moves me on nicely to the final part of the show. The one thing that actually matters, the partnership with the big man, Virgil van Dijk. When you look, James, at this partnership, you look at Van Dijk with Matip, Van Dijk with Konate, Van Dijk with Gomez. What's the dream two? I know we say Matip and Van Dijk are the two you'd go with, but if you could make any of these two the best player, which one of those three would you like to see next to Van Dijk more than anyone? Which do you have a bit of an affinity for that you want to see succeed?
Joe Gomez. You know, he was, like I've said this before, he was pivotal to the year we won the league, and I think he's being underestimated by so many Liverpool fans. You know, so many want him out, and I just think if we could have a fully fit Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez as centre backs for just one more season, I think it could be a very, very special season.
It could be, and guess who's back? Back again.
Jesus.
Jack, I'm back, Jack. So you can see me again. I know you miss me. Who would you choose out of these three? If you could put one of these with Van Dijk, your choice. Obviously, we're not thinking logically. We're thinking who you've got a little bit of affinity for. Which one would you like to see next to him most?
Oh, see, I was going logically then. I would probably... I still love Matip. I still like Matip too much to
it's
drop
the
him just
bromance as well, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Matip have these
the t-shirt.
Unbelievable. But then, do you know what? I think Konate and Van Dijk, even Gomez, they've all got a great relationship within the team. You see all this inside access and things like that. They've all got a great relationship with each other. But for me, Gomez and Van Dijk for me is just iconic. That 1920 season is my favorite season of all time. Like, look, like I'm still the kit hangs up every day. Like, I'm still waiting to get that bad boy signed. For me, that's the one. 1920, Gomez at his peak, Van Dijk at his peak.
Okay,
I've got to
but
go with that, James.
what about Matip? Whenever
Can you hear
Matip,
me, you two?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can't. Why can I not hear you? It's nice. It's nice. I'm not going to lie. Let me take these out. See if I can hear you now. But we'll carry on. I'm going to ask you both a question. Now, we've got the stats for these players teamed up with Virgil van Dijk. So I'm going to read you some stats from Van Dijk and Matip, Van Dijk and Gomez, Van Dijk and Konate. Now, we've seen more minutes between Van Dijk and Matip. But one thing I want to point to is win percentage, because at the end of the day, what matters? The win percentage. 79% win percentage with Van Dijk and Konate, the highest. 72 with Van Dijk and Matip, and 71 Van Dijk and Gomez. If it all comes down to it, the most important thing is winning games, isn't it, James? Like, the most important thing we could do is win games. So for Van Dijk and Konate to be up there as the best, 79%, does that show you, again, like playing in those big games as well? That's a great stat and shows you that Klopp might be edging towards the big man. Ibu.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other thing is because of how young Konate still is, he's learning so much from Virgil van Dijk, and I think that's probably the main reason as to why one of them three is always partnering Van Dijk, because, you know, even at Joel Matip's age, he's probably still learning things from Van Dijk that he, you know, and that's the key, isn't it? Klopp wants them to all be as high a level as Van Dijk. Yeah.
James the Brain, I would love to kind of reply to what you're saying, but right now I am having the worst technical difficulty in the world with this laptop. I can't hear a word you're saying. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to pretend I did. I'm going to be like, yeah, no, James, that was a great point you've just made there, James. Now, Jack, looking at what James has just said, I also want to point out that the opposition's average shot distance as well. When we're playing with Matip, it's 18.73 meters away from goal. When we're playing with Gomez, it's 18.6. But with Konate, it's 16.9. Again, do you think that's because of the way that Konate kind of does leave us exposed a little bit sometimes? So teams get a chance to come in behind and get more of an open look on goal, whereas the other defenders are quite reserved.
Yeah, it could be that, but it also could be the level of opposition we're playing. We've seen that Konate plays against the bigger teams, so I think bigger teams are going to get closer to goal and actually just get closer to goal and shoot from there, rather than the teams lower down the division.
I think I can hear. Yes, I can hear everyone.
Okay.
I heard lower down the division, so I'm loving it. This is live TV, people. Just roll with it. This is live TV. But lower down the division, I'm going to try and pretend that I know what you said. Yes, but I know you're making great points. This is why I don't even need to hear you both, because I know you're making great points. I think it's time to go to the verdict. I think we've heard what we need to hear. I think we've seen what we need to see. I think the evidence is clear. We've got three great stooges and deputies to Virgil van Dijk. But the question is, the verdict, we need to know. Who, James, if you're Jurgen Klopp, who is your main partner this season to Virgil van Dijk across all competitions? Who's your main partner?
I want to say I've got to stick with Joe Gomez. I think he's just too. It's yeah.
So repeat that again, Joe Gomez.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think I know who Jack's going to choose. But I'm going to ask him,
Yeah.
Jack, who are you going with? Who's the verdict?
I'm still going with Matip, but I think that could change in a year or two.
I think I'm with Jack on this one. I think it's still going to be Joel Matip because he's not proven otherwise. He's been the player that's played the most minutes consistently over the last since he came to the club. Apart from that one season, 1920, he's been the player that Klopp has trusted in. I think when you look at Klopp, he's a manager that bases a lot on loyalty as well. If you're performing, your performance levels don't dip. Even when they do, he kind of backs you as well to come back to form. But Matip's not put a foot wrong. So for me, Joel Matip and Virgil van Dijk, the main two for next season. But I will say, I do want to see maybe a Matip and a Konate, maybe a Gomez and Konate at times to see what the future might hold. That would be interesting to see who would play on the left, who'd play on the right.
What would be your... If Van Dijk was out, who would you have as the centre-back pairing?
Oh, I tell you what, Jack, 2 weeks ago, I hadn't done a show, right, by the way. And this week he's coming on and he's adding these little presenter questions, host questions in there. I love this. Van Dijk will not get injured, so it's not going to happen. But if Van Dijk does get injured, after I've cried for 3 days, I would have... That is... I'm doing a James. I was going to... Do you know what? I was just going to go straight away, Matip Konate, but I think I'd go Konate and Gomez, you know. And I'm saying that because it's a perfect chance to come of age. I feel like they do kind of contrast with each other. I think Konate plays better from the left-hand side. Even though he plays right-hand side when he plays with Van Dijk, I think he's a better left central defender. And I feel like Gomez would complement that well, even though Matip's world-class. But Matip and Van Dijk is just synonymous. So I'd like to just see a Gomez and a Konate come in there. James, who would you go with?
Konate and Gomez. I think, I've said this before, they are the future for Liverpool.
How crazy is it that I choose Matip as my partner for Van Dijk?
Yeah.
But if Van Dijk gets injured, I'm like, no, do you know what? I think Gomez and Konate might have that best kind of dynamic. Would you stick with Matip, though? Who would you choose, Jack?
I'd probably go Matip and Gomez just for that experience at the moment. But last season, I think it was AC Milan at home. We had Gomez and Konate at centre-back.
Yeah.
So,
we saw Matip. Was it the Champions League final when Matip and Konate were playing? Yeah, Matip and Konate were playing together in that. Because Van Dijk went off, didn't he?
I think it was the FA Cup final.
FA Cup final, sorry.
Yeah.
And they played really well. I felt like our defence was more solid when they played together. But great question. Another great show. An hour and 24 minutes, but it's been the first show of the week. We've had a few little bit of logistical nightmares this week. So it's the first show of the week. Started in style. We've got plenty more to come across the next 2 days. But it's great to have the gang back together. This was the show. Who partners? Virgil Van Dijk. And I've had a great show again, fellas. It's been a pleasure. James the Brain. Make sure you're following him. Instagram, Twitter. Jack, Anfield Analytics. Statman Jack. Trust me. Get over there. Follow right now. But great show again. Until next time, thank you everyone that's listened. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the likes, share it with everybody because we want to grow and grow this season so we can bring the best content for all you Liverpool fans out there. But until next time, Jack, James, thank you very much. You'll never walk alone. Peace.